Hey, welcome back. We're here with another Q&A. So we're here to answer any question you have. So definitely prepare your questions. We're going to kind of rapidly go through as many as possible. So anything I say is not meant to diagnose or replace your medical care. Check with your doc before implementing any of the suggestions. And I'm really curious to see what kind of challenges people are running into today. So go ahead and let's see if we can dive right in, Steve.
All right, very good. Hello, world. And we got questions from everywhere. In this case, Bernadette in Ireland from YouTube. What's the best way to cleanse parasites from the body?
The first mode of entry of parasites usually is the stomach, so you want to make sure your stomach is acid. So betaine hydrochloride is probably would have prevented it in the first place, because then you allow things to get inside the body. But black walnut hulls, that's a good remedy for parasites. Garlic is another good remedy. Oregano. These powerful herbs are really good at killing and purging these parasites. But the black walnut remedy is a real common one that a lot of people use.
Okay, Janessa from YouTube is asking, please do a video on second generation antipsychotic meds. I want to know how to reduce their effect. I'm already taking benfotiamine. Any words to that?
Yeah. The side effects on antipsychotic drugs are just off the chart. And there's a lot of money to be made in that area. So that's why you don't see alternatives and things like that. Like even you're taking benfotiamine, which actually is not necessarily for that condition. I think that's good for peripheral neuropathies. But of course, if you're not on a psychiatric medication and you wanted to take something like St. John's wort is a really good one. But let's say you are on a medication, then the doctors don't like you to take that because that's going to mess with your serotonin levels. So I think the better remedy is vitamin D in higher amounts. Really seems to help with that condition. And then what happens is that you just have to find a doctor that will work with you to gradually, you know, have a plan to come off the medication with this new alternative substitute that has slightly less side effects.
Well, but in general, the pharmaceuticals say if it's broke, don't fix it, right? I mean, I guess that's the
Well,
yeah,
no, if it's broke, let's just patch it up, and
right.
let's just keep patching it up, every day, and we have a solution that will last 24 hours, and then you just have to keep taking it, but we can manage it, let's not correct it.
Absolutely not. Laura from Facebook, if I consume a healthy diet, should I still take supplements or is it just a waste of my money? That's a good question.
This is the question I think that, I probably should do a video on because even doctors will say, You don't need to take extra supplements because you get everything from your diet." Really? Well, that just tells me the lack of information whoever said that has on the purpose of nutrition. They don't really know. People don't really understand like why you need nutrition. If you take a look at, if you ever taken biochemistry or biology, you can see there's all these biochemical pathways. There's a lot of them. It looks like a circuit board, and for every step in this biochemical factory, you need cofactors. What's a cofactor? Vitamins, minerals. That's why you need it. So, like even magnesium is involved in 300 different chemical reactions. So, are you sure? Have you ever tested to make sure you have fulfillment of magnesium for all of those biochemical pathways? Oh, you have? Okay, what test did you do? Well, we did a blood test. Oh, by the way, that doesn't test for that. It doesn't test what's happening deep in the cells. The blood is like you can have normal calcium and be completely osteoporotic. You can have normal magnesium and have severe deficiency of magnesium in the cells. Same thing with vitamin D. So the blood is not how you test that. And one of the best tests is to get what's called a metabolomic test to really see if all these cofactors are satisfying your biochemistry. So do you need supplements? Absolutely. But it varies with people. I do a lot of videos on kind of the most common deficiencies that people have. And it doesn't mean that you always have to just take supplements. It just make sure that you eat foods high in those nutrients too. But yeah, we do need supplements unless you can completely do an evaluation on your intake of your diet and eat really super nutrient dense foods and make sure you don't eat anything that doesn't deplete those foods. I mean, it's not easy.
No, and our diets are rotten at large. So, there you go. So, Sabrina in London from Rumble, thanks for joining us. How can I make my uterine fibroids go away? Ouch.
There is some, I tried to search for data on this a long time ago, and I would recommend cruciferous vegetables, getting off carbs, because the insulin is a anabolic hormone that grows things. And I still recommend that. But there is something pretty cool that you could also do that I think will make a huge difference. High doses of vitamin D3, like maybe 30,000 IUs, and just see what happens, because you don't see a lot of research on vitamin D because it's been suppressed. I did a video on that, but there is some great information in some of the other videos I've done on anecdotal evidence that people have taken higher doses of vitamin D and shrink their fibroids. So that's something to look at and do your research and consider.
All right, Queen at Rumble wants to know the best natural source of vitamin B1.
Sunflower seeds are a good source. Now you might say also grains, whole grains, but the problem with grains is they come with a package. They come with anti-nutrients factors, and they bind to certain elements, and they create all sorts of other issues. So you can get B1 from a variety of things. There's a little B1 in meats. Then you have a lot in liver. In seafood, you can get B1. Believe it or not, pork out of all the meats has the most B1. The other thing is pumpkin seeds have B1. If you think about it, like a lot of the seeds have B1, but the problem with the seeds is they have other issues. So if you eat a variety of things, you should be able to get it. But more importantly, what is sucking out your B1? And that is the refined starches and sugars and alcohol.
Okay, great. By the way, we're of course in love with all our viewers from YouTube and Facebook, but we would like to acknowledge that Rumble is really coming on, and we appreciate that alternative source for, being frank and truthful about health things. So to that end, MCS 1986 from Rumble, what's causing my puffy eyes in the morning?
I think it's your carb levels, because I've noticed you can kind of look at someone's eyelids and see if they're on a high carb diet. They're going to be puffy around the eyes. I used to have it. So I would cut down the carbs the day before. Well, if I just asked you, what did you eat the day before? It'd probably be higher sugars or carbs. And because the carbs tend to retain fluid in the tissues, to kind of get waterlogged. And you can really see it around the eyes, swollen eyes. Like I said, I had it. You could look in some of my earlier videos. I was doing too many snacks and things like that, and just my insulin was too high. But that's usually what it is. There also could be a kidney issue involved, but I would go for the low-hanging fruit first.
All right, very good. Let's find out who's watching. It appears there's a lot. So we'd like to say a good day to all our viewers joining us today from the UK, Canada, Mexico, Iran, Germany, Italy, Philippines, New Zealand, Oman, Gambia, Panama, Switzerland, South Korea, Malaysia, Albania, Israel, Guyana, Thailand, Cyprus, Thailand and Cyprus, Pakistan, El Salvador, Saudi Arabia, Bolivia, Greece, Slovakia, Kazakhstan, India, Lithuania, Finland, long list today, Kashmir, Zambia, South Africa, the Virgin Islands, Brunei, Malta, Belgium, Australia, Spain, Nigeria, Sweden, Norway, Qatar, the Netherlands, Poland, China, France, Egypt, Barbados, Morocco, Trinidad and Tobago, Denmark, Indonesia, South Korea, the Czech Republic, Tunisia, Austria, Kuala Lumpur, and drumbeat all across these United States. Thanks everybody so much for making the show a success around the world. JJ from Facebook, what are the primary benefits of cod liver oil?
They have a unique advantage over just fish oils. So yes, they have the omega-3 fatty acids, which includes the EPA, which is good for inflammation, and DHA, which is good for your brain and your heart and your eyes. Like 60% of your retina has that type of fat. I think it's 25% of your frontal lobe has that type of fat, DHA. So it's good for neurological stuff. But cod liver oil has two additional things that are pretty cool. That would be vitamin A and vitamin D. You don't see many supplements out there with natural vitamin A. So I think it's a good combination of those four things, and the benefits go beyond just the omega-3 fatty acids, which are anti-inflammatory, and then support, your eyes, your heart, and your brain.
All right, let's go ahead with our first question of the day. Dr. Berg, there it is.
If someone gets a lot of sun, takes a lot of vitamin D, and still deficient, what is the likely cause?
Okay, audience, climb on it as we know you will. Back to social media. Mastercat from Rumble. My vitamin D levels have been measured at 122. Should I be worried about any toxicity? Should I stop taking my vitamin D supplements?
Here's my viewpoint. You're in a nice therapeutic range there. So if you're like 30 or low, that's really, 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 really bad. You're going to have problems. So even when you get up to 40, then you're supplying a part of the bone and calcium function of vitamin D. But unfortunately, there's another system. Well, it's just more of a confusion. There's another system of vitamin D that works on all the non-calcium sources, immune system, your gut, your brain. I mean, like all these other things. So the problem is that you can't really know. There's bad correlation or association between the blood level and what's going on with that system. So you need daily vitamin D or sun exposure and at least 6 to 8,000 to 10,000 IUs just to maintain that system. So, but what about if you have problems? What if you have inflammation? What if you have arthritis or autoimmune? Like now we need to increase that to a therapeutic range. There is no agreed upon amount of vitamin D in your blood levels. It's kind of all over the place because of this hyper focus on just the calcium part, not the other part. So it's a big unknown, but there's some great data that I did an interview with Bruce Hollins, where you got to have more to support various things, even if you're breastfeeding. Like just to get that vitamin D in the milk, you better be having 6 to 8,000 at least of vitamin D in your daily exposure to make sure that vitamin D is in the milk. So that being said, I'm trying to get mine above 100, like between 100 and 150, just because I have a lot of arthritis. So I think my viewpoint is I don't think it's a problem at all as long as you're taking the cofactors, especially magnesium, and then some K2, some zinc, B6, because that way you can minimize any potential toxic side effects. There's this rumor floating around that, oh my gosh, vitamin D is toxic for rats. They use it as rat poison. Oh, okay. So if they use it as rat poison, so we should just avoid taking vitamin D altogether, right? Um, people take this little piece of data and exaggerate it. If you want to kill a rat with vitamin D, which by the way, their system is different than our metabolism with vitamin D. Their system is a lot more sensitive. You'd have to give it, 150,000 IUs, 150,000 IUs, not what I'm recommending, like 10,000 or 20,000 or 30,000. But if we look at a toxic level for a human, it's going to be like even with my vitamin D, you'd have to consume 5 bottles of this, which would come out to in one sitting. which come up to 5,600,000 IUs, right, to create a toxic effect. So again, this is never going to happen. So for someone to say, "Oh yeah, it's rat poison," well, they kill rats also with, um, you know, with binders to block vitamin K2, warfarin, but doctors give that as a medication. So again, it's like you're taking something out of context. I don't. I think depending on what you're doing, if you're taking the cofactors, I think it's going to be fine.
Well, so if you take a bottle of vitamin D and then smash a rat with it, that also demonstrates a terrible correlation between it. Alina from Facebook, I had a total knee replacement in 2018, and 6 years in, I still have swelling in my knees and my ankles ever since. X-rays, fine. How can I reduce this swelling? Poor thing.
Create a therapeutic effect with vitamin D, number one, but also there's some great things that you should search on the internet for um, knee pain. Watch all my videos on knee pain because what happened when you damage one knee, you're going to start to walk differently. You're going to shift your weight on the opposite knee. And now you set up a pattern that is, you've adapted your muscles, you adapted create compensations in your fascia. So what does this mean? It means that you need to do some good deep fascial stretching and acupressure trigger point stuff on the opposite knee and leg and muscle in your thigh. And I show you exactly how to do that. Follow those videos. I think it's a great way to stabilize and balance out that asymmetrical gait that you probably have right now.
Okay, by the way, audience, we're sorry that the ads on YouTube are constantly blocking it. I have alerted our team to that, so
We
hopefully
forgot
they'll
to
do
tell,
something about it.
we
Anyway,
forgot to tell to turn off these darn ads on. Yeah,
okay, but
darn
anyway,
it.
I alerted our expert team, our crack team, so I'm sure they're doing something about it. Okay, Tracy from Rumble, what's the best way to get sufficient levels of B6?
B6 is really easy to get. Um, I do also, just for the fun of it, put it into a lot of my supplements just because it's a cofactor for so many different things, but it's in meat, it's in eggs, it's in vegetables, it's in sunflower seeds, it's in nuts. I mean, it's like all over the place. So it's not in any one thing specifically. In fact, I don't even know of anything it's not in.
Oh, okay. Well, here we go. Quiz question number one. Let me bring that up. It asked, if someone gets a lot of sun, takes a lot of vitamin D, speak of the devil, or the good thing, is it still deficient? What is the likely cause? 74% of our respondents say it's because of low magnesium levels. 16% say it's a lack of vitamin K2, and 10% say it's age-related.
I think everyone's right, but the answer I was looking for was be the magnesium deficient one because um, magnesium is such a key factor for vitamin D. You can't, in fact, vitamin D can't even work unless you have magnesium. Even in many different steps from, let's say you're on the sun and the sun hits your skin, and then that sun um, converts the cholesterol to a pre-vitamin D molecule, right? Well, that requires magnesium. And then that pre-vitamin D has to go through the liver, bind with a protein. That requires magnesium. And then it floats around in your blood for a while, then it goes to the kidney, it releases the protein, and then it ends up as an active form. But now we need a magnesium again to go into the receptors. So you could see, boy, if you're deficient in magnesium, which a great percentage of the population is deficient, it could be the reason why you're also deficient in vitamin D. So I am going to be doing a presentation on magnesium in a couple weeks. Actually, no, it's next weekend. Wow, it's coming up in San Diego at the low carb conference. So if you happen to be around, you should come to that and show up and talk. But I'm going to present a lot of data on magnesium because I think it's just so interesting. It's not only so interesting, it's so vital, and also it's really difficult to test it. Can't test it with a blood test. And a lot of people aren't aware that they're deficient, but they are, and it really goes into a lot of different body issues.
Okay, how about Zandra from YouTube? What are your thoughts about grounding sheets?
I tried it. I thought it was interesting. I don't. I talked to a physicist on this who actually knows a lot about electromagnetic fields, grounding, and there's not a lot of data on this. There's not a lot of data that says it works. Of course, I still have mine plugged in, and I haven't seen any difference. I'll be unplugging it. I like to try different things just to see, and that I don't think that's something that I would invest in.
All right, very good. Let's see. Anne from YouTube, is ashwagandha good for adrenal fatigue?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's called an adaptogen, which means it increases your ability to deal with stress and cope with stress, and so it's a great thing for let's say you fly off the handle easily, or you can't cope with life as well. You get overwhelmed. Like, I don't know. Let's say you're stuck on the belt traffic around DC for more than 2 hours and that bothers you. Well, you need some ashwagandha.
A lot of ashwagandha in DC. Okay, quiz question number 2. There it is, Doc.
Okay, if someone is deficient in zinc, what then happens to their immune system?
All right, we'll find out from the audience, I'm sure. Okay, Jamie from Rumble, I've heard that fish oil supplements are processed in too high a heat to be of any benefit. What do you think, and do you have a brand recommendation?
A lot of them are. A lot of them are. And a lot of them are processed in China. And so then you don't really know because the regulations kind of get really loose when you start going from country to country. It's hard to track it, but there's a lot of corruption and problems with fish oils in general. This is one reason why it's good to go just with a brand that you can, at least the person or the brand cares about the quality, and versus just trying to go for the cheapest fish oils you could possibly find at the drugstore or the grocery store. I personally I found a good source. Cod liver oil. I don't even know at this time if it's available on our website or not. I have no idea, but we found something and we're actively putting things together for that because um, I prefer the cod liver oil because you get additional benefits, but it took us a bit of time to find the company that really we get full transparency and we know exactly what we're getting.
Very good. That's encouraging. Love 67 from Rumble. Is it possible to get enough vitamin D3 from vegan algae? And by the way, they're not a vegan.
Yeah, I should do a video on this, but it's definitely a big difference between the vegan source and, if I'm not mistaken, I might be mistaken. I don't think I am now. You're getting like there's a D2 version, like I know in mushrooms, for example. Um, so it's not as potent, it's not as powerful. Um, but I think a really good book, if you want some really interesting data on just the topic of D2, you can look up the author. It's Jeff Bowles, and he has several books on vitamin D. But there's one that's called the High Dose of Vitamin D3. It's a really great comprehensive book on everything you want to know about D3, and that way you'll have the data, and you won't have secondhand information from me. You'll have firsthand.
Okay, very good. Why don't we go to our green room for our first participant of the day? He's a nice fellow named Samuel from Fort Worth. And Samuel, you are on for your brief question with Dr. Berg.
Dr. Berg, you've mentioned requiring 2.6 units of potassium for every gram of protein intake. How do you calculate the other micronutrients, magnesium, sodium, calcium? And does the amount of sodium change for somebody that works out an hour a day or 3 hours a day? How do you quantify that number?
It's actually impossible. It's impossible to figure that out because there's too many variables involved. I mean, you have your metabolism, you have different levels of exercise, you have your age, you have hormonal shifts. So it's really hard to calculate these things on a micro level like that and determine. I'll give you some general guidelines. You have the electrolytes. You have potassium, you have magnesium, you have sodium, you have calcium. We need, out of all of those, calcium is retained the most, and that's the one you got to be careful about taking too much. Out of all of them, sodium is one that can go out of your body pretty quickly, and especially when you sweat. So if you're exercising, we want to have obviously more sodium than other things, and then of course the ratio of potassium to sodium, you need to be twice as much. So it's kind of like you have to go by various factors like how much sweat and are you craving salt, and also you're not going to be able to um, you're just going to have to eat foods that have higher in potassium, or take a supplement or something like that. But I think even more importantly, when you understand these electrolytes, is that this magnesium is at the heart of regulating all of them. It's like the most important, because especially for too much calcium buildup in the cells, magnesium is the controller of that. Also, a magnesium controls potassium too. So it's a really key one to get, and it's like, yeah, you can take more salt, but then you can do trace minerals, but you better also eat foods high in magnesium and potassium to get that. So it's a really hard question to answer. You'd have to evaluate the diet, and I think it's almost impossible to answer that. So I'm sorry.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Samuel. I hope that helps. And it sounds like you're a healthy guy, so you're probably going to do great. All right. Let's move on, shall we? Back to social media. Mohammed from YouTube: is there a natural way to treat or reverse hepatitis B, as in boy?
There might be, but I don't have the exact solution for that. But I think if you just look around, you might find the solution. But anything with viral infections and I'm guessing it's a viral infection that's creating the hepatitis. I think you need to do a deep dive into how to counteract viruses. Viruses can go back in remission. They can go out of remission, and it all depends on how strong your immune system really is. And so I would do things to really strengthen that up. And also, I would highly recommend higher doses of vitamin D3 for inflammation in general. And but I don't have a specific remedy for that disease.
Okay, well, we have a remedy for a question that was asked, and it said, and that's our audience. If someone is deficient in zinc, what happens to their immune system? 85% of our respondents say the immune system becomes weaker. 10% say you'll have more fatigue, and 5% say it will cause poor circulation. How'd they do, Doc?
Yeah, well, they're all right. They're all right. There's something very specific though in the immune system that zinc deficiency will create. It actually causes the key gland of your immune system called the thymus. It's above the heart, and this is like the training camp for all the T cells. It's like a really important gland, and that shrinks. It atrophies if you don't have enough zinc. So what does that mean? It means that now you can't produce and train these T cells like you used to. Now, what's the consequences of not training your T cells or not developing or creating enough of them? Number one, you don't get the T cells that can kill cancer and kill viruses. And number three, you don't get the T cells that help prevent autoimmune diseases. So you can see how important zinc is just to keep the immune system and that thymus strong enough to counter certain things. It's like it's part of your defenses. And I think there's not enough emphasis on strengthening the immune system versus let's kill off this virus. Let's try to kill cancer. Let's try to treat autoimmune disease. But what about your own immune system?
Interesting. Okay. Quiz question number 3. There it is, sir.
What's worse for the heart, saturated or unsaturated fat?
All right. Climb on that, audience. And let's go back to social media. Niraj from YouTube, I hope I pronounced your name right. What advice would you give a vegetarian who's suffering from anemia?
I would tell them to go on a switch to carnivore. No, I think it really depends on what kind of anemia. Is it iron anemia or is it something called pernicious anemia, which is a B12 deficiency? Which, being a vegan, are you having enough B12? So I don't know, but the best source of B12 is like clams, and then red meat and liver, and then there's seafood as well. But I have to have more information about that. So I'd start. You're going to probably have to take a supplement. I always recommend people take a good, more bioavailable type of iron, which is actually in liver pills. But I don't think you're going to do that. So you just might have to cope and consume iron as a supplement, even though I don't like that idea. It's like a plan C. So that's what I would do. And then, of course, the B12. If you're taking B12, make sure you take methylcobalamin, not the cyanocobalamin.
That's a mouthful. Mohammed from YouTube, is there a natural way, to treat or reverse hepatitis B?
I think you just asked that, didn't you?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I should have erased it. How about Red Rose from YouTube? Bet I didn't ask this. Is it okay to take supplements after the expiration date? Do we need more of them to get the full benefit at that time?
There's this common thing where they just put expiration date usually at 6 months or a year for a lot of supplements, even though I know they last a lot longer because there's even my manufacturing company, we do tests every year and we can monitor and check the potency. They last a lot longer than that expiration date. In fact, honestly, I have if you look at my supplements, some of them are that I take, they're definitely older and they seem to work fine. Again, that's a generalized answer. I'd have to know more about what you're taking. How long? Has it been like, I don't know, 50 years after the expiration date? Then maybe a little too long there.
All right, very good. Quiz question number 3 has an answer from our audience, and it asks, what's worse for the heart, saturated or unsaturated fat? And 82% of our respondents say it's unsaturated fat, and 18% say it's the saturated fats. What do you say, doctor?
Well, if we go to Google, it'll say saturated fat. Even if you go to ChatGPT, it'll say saturated fat. I have to argue back and forth, and I'm like, wait a second, what about unsaturated fat, which includes omega-3 fatty acids, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the processed seed oils. Those are much worse than saturated fat. When we talk about this whole concept of avoid junk food, avoid saturated fat. Well, have you looked at the back of the label for junk food lately and just looked at how much saturated fat is in there compared to unsaturated fat? You're going to find it's massively unsaturated. And we're talking about the seed oils, the heart healthy ones. Yeah, those highly processed. It's just a matter of time before it gets banned. If you take a look at trans fats, how many years was it considered generally recognized as safe? Over 100. And then we find out we have to ban it. Well, wait a second. Why didn't we know right away? Where was the safety studies? How did it last that long? There are so many things on the market that are not safe, that are considered safe. And unfortunately, it all depends on how much money is involved in how many lobbyist groups and how many people you can dupe, because it's definitely, make note of this. Unsaturated fats eventually will be deemed not healthy for your heart.
Huh.
Just make note of that, Steve.
I will, those rat things. Okay, Nala from YouTube, can coffee be harmful to the thyroid?
I think if you do an organic coffee, and because I know it's like heavily with pesticides, like the commercial coffees, so yeah, that's bad. But if you're doing an organic coffee, like I do every morning, um, no, it's not gonna, and you don't overdo it, I don't think it's gonna be a problem for your thyroid.
Okay, very good. Audience, I'm going to do something for our social media fans and have an absolute marathon. How am I going to pull that off? Well, I'm going to put our last participant guest up. His name is John. And John, you are on with Dr. Berg for a quick question, if you don't mind.
Hello, Dr. Berg. Good morning, and Steve. Thank you for your good work helping others.
Good morning.
My question is simply, what is your best advice for treating benign prostate hyperplasia? I've been advised by a urologist to consider a transurethral procedure, but I would rather avoid this due to the possible side effects.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna give you a little disclaimer. This is just information, my opinion, check with your doctor, but, there's a couple things that I would personally do, research on. That would be, um, milk proteins. Milk proteins, tend to create an enlarged prostate. Also, there's a lot of mixed reviews on, the more powerful form of testosterone, DHT. And there's some mixed reviews on that. I did a video on that, but I think one thing to look at or research is a product called DIM, which can actually help reduce estrogen, which has a tendency to enlarge the prostate. The other thing that I would definitely try is high doses of vitamin D3 because it works on fibroids, it works on enlarged other problems and cysts and fistulas and all sorts of things. I would definitely look into that with magnesium. The interesting thing about the prostate is that when you get over the age of 80 years old, and they've done biopsies on this, they find just a lot of even cancer cells that don't even turn into cancer, even when you get older, unfortunately. So it's all about surveillance, immune surveillance, and protecting, keeping your immune system super strong. So like zinc, vitamin D are going to be at the top of the list. Eating really healthy. You might also want to do some more fasting because fasting and prolonged fasting will create a autophagy, and that helps clean up extra protein damage if there's scar tissue in there and things like that. If you have urination problems, I think another thing that I've suggested in the past is to really make sure you don't have carb creep. The carbs start creeping in, especially late at night. I found a lot of men, all of a sudden, their urination is much better after that. And also, if the main complaint that you have, because a lot of men have enlarged prostates after a certain age, if it's urination problem at night and you're doing all these things, one thing that I've found very, very beneficial is to try to, like, of course, not drink any water past like 5 o'clock, but drink a lot of water before that, and that way you can actually get some help with that. Would you say that is the main symptom, getting up at night?
It has been of late, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
So
it's the usual things, the frequency and the urgency and all blah, blah, blah.
yeah, yeah. I think more vitamin D, and then keep your carbs low. You'll be pleasantly surprised, and I think that could greatly benefit those symptoms. And then, you know, weigh out the advantages because all these other invasive procedures have come with a package. And do you really want to do that? I don't know. It's to weigh it out, but that's what I would recommend.
Okay. Could I just ask, you mentioned something called, I think you said it was DIM? I'm not
Yeah,
sure what
dim.
that is.
It's a concentrated cruciferous product that takes these phytonutrients, and it's really good to help um, lower if there's any estrogenic effects going on. And I will say that as as we get older, especially in men, the liver isn't as healthy, and you tend to accumulate more estrogens. Also, so DIM tends to help clean up the extra estrogens in the body, and estrogen can definitely swell up or enlarge the prostate. So that's the mechanism there.
What was the carb creep? Is that what you said?
What
Carb
yeah, what
creep?
happens is like when people they start snacking at night, and so what increases
Okay.
insulin is the is not just the carbs, but it's the frequency of eating and the snacking, especially at night. So I found that if you keep your meals intermittent fasting, no snacks, that really will help um, the urination at night, for sure.
Okay.
That's
Thank you.
great. All right, thanks for a great call, John. Hope that helps. Now, as promised, we're going to go on a social media marathon. We should get one more question out first, and then it's off to the audience. And here it is, Doc.
Okay, true or false? 80% of men over 80 have microscopic cancer cells in their prostate. Now, let's see who's been listening.
All right, audience. It's been handed to you, so see how you do. Now, marathon of social media questions, starting with Kiki from Facebook. What supplements should a woman in menopause be taking, especially for back and joint pain?
Well, I think the vitamin D and magnesium are going to be really, really important. And even for the recommendation, the gentleman I just talked to, I said vitamin D, but I think I should have also mentioned make sure if you're going to take vitamin D, higher doses, I would take 800 milligrams of magnesium. I like the glycinate because that will make vitamin D really work a lot better. And magnesium by itself can also help regulate calcium. And I just have to jump back to this last question, which I just want to be complete on it because you have when you're diabetic, a lot of times you'll have frequency of urine and you have increased thirst. But a lot of times you'll have frequency of urine more at night when you're diabetic. But there's one more reason why you'll actually also, and this relates to the blood sugar thing, right? That's why we keep the carbs down. But there's one more condition that can cause increased urination at night, especially, and that is high levels of calcium. And as we get older, we tend to calcify, and the solution for that is the magnesium. So the magnesium is going to kill two birds with one stone.
Okay.
So I think I jumped around a lot, but hopefully I answered the first question.
I think so. And John, you stepped away from your camera, I saw, and I just want to make sure that you heard that Dr. Berg recommended magnesium glycinate in 800 milligrams. Did I say that right?
I would do that. I would totally do that because it's just interesting, especially because it controls calcium. I mean, think about we get older, we get stiff, but also look at all these heart medications. What are they doing? They're calcium channel blockers. They're reducing calcium. Then you get people get the kidney stones and the calcification in the arteries. And I'm telling you, this magnesium is a very powerful heavy hitter for so many issues.
Wonderful. Okay, quiz question number 4. Our audience are heavy hitters because they answered that instantly, as usual. And it asked, 80% of men over 80 have microscopic cancer cells in their prostate, and 98% of our respondents say it's true, and 2% they don't have any cancer.
What happens is we have dormant cells that are cancer. It can happen in the breast, it can happen in the skin. A good percentage of the population has these cancer cells, and they found this through autopsy, but they're not developing into cancer. Okay, so what does this tell us right off the bat? It tells us that what's keeping these cancer cells in check is your immune system. And this is why when people get older, they're more at risk for cancer. So in other words, one of the greatest risk factors for all disease is age. So what can you do? What do you have to do? Start reversing the aging process? Well, what you can do is you can do things to eat better, strengthen the immune system. And I'm telling you, at the top of the list, as far as especially the immune system, when we deal with the T cells, is be zinc. And the next most important one would be vitamin D. And that way, even if you have cancer cells, they're kept in check by your immune system, which has been kind of ignored recently.
Okay, final question, Doc. There it is.
Okay, true or false? Our bodies naturally make vitamin B12.
Right or wrong? Okay, Sizzy from Rumble, what is the best way to treat or prevent sarcopenia? Why is it being pushed quite a bit? Is that the best preventative?
Sarcopenia is a condition where you start losing your muscles, okay, as you age, age-related muscle degeneration. There is some great data that shows that vitamin D and magnesium helps that condition. Here we keep coming back to these two, but also having enough sufficient protein is going to be very, very important. Making sure that your cells are as healthy as possible, like with vitamin B3, that would be helpful too. So I guess it's you got to look at the whole package, and I think a very important thing to do as you age is to do not start to omit quality protein and do what a lot of people do, like, oh, I'm gonna avoid eating red meat because I heard it's bad. No. Healthy grass-fed red meat is the absolute healthiest thing you can do for your muscles and your body. And it's been linked, it's been associated with cancer, which is totally bogus. They just lump it together with the processed meat without any studies at all with grass-fed, grass-finished meat. So, but when you consume the red meat, and the reason I'm also bringing this up is because I have a chance to be involved with looking at metabolomic research and seeing what's happening with this deeper biochemical research of what people really need to heal their bodies. And you can see it that, like, when someone needs more red meat, the mitochondria just does so much better versus other types of proteins. And I think it has to do with, like, grass-fed cows eat grass. Even like if you have ruminant animals like sheep and goat meat too, that's just as good. So versus the grain-fed chicken, the grain-fed pigs. Now we don't have the same profiles. We don't have the same meat. So if you're trying to be healthy and you want some really good advice on the quantity of or percentage of protein, what you should focus on more, I would put more lion's share attention on the animals that eat grass. If you eat more of that, I'm telling you, you're going to be healthier than if you eat other types of protein. I'm not saying don't do that, but just try to have more of that.
Wonderful. Okay, final quiz question for the day. It was a true falser. Our bodies naturally make vitamin B12, and 65% of our respondents say it's false, and 35% say it's absolutely true.
It's kind of a hard question to answer because our bodies can't make B12, but our microbes, believe it or not, in the large intestine do make some B12. Not a lot, but we don't have any receptors to absorb it. So we don't get a lot of benefit, if at all, at least from our cells, but maybe they feed the microbes. But so that's kind of a trick question a little bit, but it's this is another interesting reason why you need to eat foods high in B12, because even though your microbes might make it, you have to eat animal products to get B12. And you need a strong stomach, and there's other barriers that prevent you from absorbing B12. I will be doing a video on that shortly, but again, we come full circle to this thing called red meat, which has been vilified, but it's a really healthy thing. And I always feel better when I eat it. So this whole idea that, oh yeah, you need to have it less. Well, maybe you just need to acidify your stomach so you can digest it better. That's maybe a better solution than to switch to soy protein isolates, which is in the main protein in all the protein bars, which are so convenient, but they're crappy.
Well, a very familiar face, a guy named Jordan Peterson, went to nothing but red meat 6 years ago, and he ain't dead, and all sorts of conditions he had disappeared. He looks fabulous. So those rumors are unsubstantiated because he doesn't do anything but red meat. So there you have it. Anyway, Bev from YouTube, what can you help eliminate dark circles under the eyes? My daughter has essentially had them since birth.
I'd really look at her and see if she has any anemia. I would also look at her nutrition status. What is she eating? Was she breastfed or not? There's a lot of factors that can do that. Rather than topically trying to do something, I think internally you have to look at all these other factors. I did a video on this, so you can look at the most recent one. And there's many different reasons why you could have these dark circles, including not being exposed to the sun, because the sun is now vilified, right? So we have red meat being vilified, the sun being vilified because the sun will kill you. I mean, two of the things that literally are probably two of the most important things that you can do for your health out of anything. The next thing you'll hear is that exercise is now bad for your health, so don't exercise. So there you
All
go,
right.
Steve.
All right, let's see. Cheryl from Facebook, what are the best supplements to improve circulation?
Well, vitamin C is a really good one because it also supports the lining, the inner lining, and vitamin E as well on the arteries. And it's a very thin single cell layer that gets damaged very easily from seed oils. But vitamin C is really good. Vitamin E is very good. And of course, if you look at who gets bad circulation problems, you have diabetics because they're eating so much sugar. So it's not a matter of taking something, it's a matter of avoiding something. And then, of course, you also get people that have a B12 deficiency for some reason, right? And then they start having circulation problems as well because and neurological problems too in their feet and their hand, which might appear like to be circulation, but they're more neurological.
All right, very good. Let's see. Poor Nick from YouTube's eyes twitching. How do I stop my left eye from twitching every day? It's annoying.
Twitching or tetany, I've done several old videos and new videos on it because it's really an excess calcium. Too much calcium creates this hyper contracted excitability state. Okay. And the remedy for that, in the past, I thought it would be more of a pH problem. You change the pH, you acidify the body, and sometimes that works. But I changed my mind on that. I think there's a much better remedy for that calcium accumulation, and that would be magnesium. So start taking more magnesium, about 800 milligrams per day, and watch what happens, because that ultimately is going to help balance out your calcium, and it will also help many other things.
Okay, very good. Our friend Sadao10 from Rumble today is asking, my intercellular test indicates I have a deficiency. He doesn't say what, but then he says, should I be adding copper supplements to my diet? Is that?
Well, if he's talking about copper, I'm thinking zinc. He's talking about zinc to balance it out. Well, yes, you need to balance out zinc with copper for sure. Also, you'll have a problem. But when you also talk about intracellular nutrition, also the two minerals that come to mind, which are mostly intracellular, which could be magnesium and potassium, in which case you just need to start really fortifying your body with those two minerals, because testing them in the blood doesn't give you any information. You have to do a special test, intracellular test. I'm having a hard time finding a good company that will test intracellular magnesium and potassium. If you find one that actually call you back, please type it down below, because there's a few out there, but you can't even get a hold of them. So I'm like, there could be another test that could be done for some of this nutrition, measuring your vitamins from, or your minerals from, the white blood cell, because the red blood cell assessment is not, I don't think, as good either, is because it doesn't have mitochondria. So you don't get a nice, really true assessment of that magnesium. So anyway, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole right now, Steve. So we'll move on.
Well, we will move on to Cheryl from Facebook, who wants to know what the best supplements are to improve her circulation.
Yeah, we mentioned this. We talked about vitamin C and vitamin E. I'm sure there's probably other things you can take too, but is it vein problems, or is it varicose veins or spider veins? I think a good remedy would be sauerkraut, but make sure it's raw, because we want that huge amount of vitamin C, which is usually about 700 milligrams per cup, and that's a really good thing. Because if you look at like the deficiency of vitamin C, you'll tend to have like more spider veins and more problems with your vascular system.
You did a video showing a sauerkraut product from the grocery store. Do you mind giving us the name of that? Because it's hard to, or do you recall?
I don't have a brand. The main thing with sauerkraut is get your sauerkraut from the refrigerator section versus the bottled sauerkraut or the canned sauerkraut, which is pasteurized.
Very
or
good.
make your own.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
I'm too
make
lazy.
your own. We're going to make our own.
I'm too lazy. I'll grab it from the freezer section or whatever that was. Refrigerated. Len from YouTube, what are your thoughts on using beef tallow to moisten the skin? Have you tried it?
Yeah, it's great. I love it. I did a video on this. There's definitely some very close chemistry to your own oils. So I think it's a great thing for skin, and a lot of people are doing it. I like it. I recommend it. There's some really cool companies out there that are promoting that. But yeah, I'm totally recommending that.
Okay, Sheila's been very patient from Facebook. She's asking what supplements can help with my tingling in my hands. I already have a B complex, vitamin D3, and magnesium regime.
So just make sure that you take, also in addition to that, a fat soluble B1. It's called benfotiamine, and you're going to need like 4 times the dosage. And I would just basically take one of those tablets 4 times a day and spread them out. And that way you can keep your cells saturated with B1. Okay, but also the B12 is also going to help with the myelin sheath. So there's different ways of it working, but it'll, I think ultimately help you greatly. Now, do you have it in your feet? If not, and you have tingling in the hands, and let's say you take these and it still doesn't work, there's other reasons too. It could be like something pinching in your spinal cord. So might just consider that as a possibility. Something going on there that could create tingling and numbness in the feet. I mean, in the fingertips. So, if something doesn't work, look at other reasons for that thing not working.
Okay, I think this will be our final question. Orlena from YouTube, what is a good to take to address wheezing and allergy issues?
Take a wild guess. Vitamin D. Anything related to asthma, vitamin D is what you want to do. Anything related to lung, vitamin D is going to help you. Higher amounts. 600 to 800 IUs is not going to do anything, because unless you're up taking a daily amount, like at least 10,000, it doesn't really kind of spill over into these other tissues like your lung, the immune system, the gut, the brain, the eyes. So there's 2 systems for that. Also asthma, there's a great thing you should do as well, is start nose breathing, because you're going to restrict the air a little bit and give a little more mixture of CO2, which will actually, believe it or not, increase more oxygen release from your red blood cells into the tissues. And so you have less symptoms with asthma. Dr. Bruce Hollis, with his interview, told me that, and he wants to do the study for this, but it might be a little expensive, but you could, if you give a woman sufficient vitamin D, we're talking 6 to 8,000 IUs in the first trimester of a pregnancy, there won't be any asthma in that child's life. So that's an interesting clue on the power of vitamin D. And on that thought, have a wonderful weekend. Next week, I will not do a show because I'll be in San Diego for this convention. So why don't we all just kind of go to the convention, and I'll put a link down below and I'll meet you there. Have a great weekend.